Low-key geek.
Hey.
Hey, he's a low-key geek. He tries to be out there when he wants to be, but hey, he's a low-key geek.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another Low-Key Geek Podcast, coming to you pre-recorded once again on this week of September 10th, or is it 9th? I can't quite remember, but basically it is a Wednesday, so it's the 9th. But it's a Wednesday, and I hope you guys had a wonderful Labor Day weekend. We're just coming off of a Labor Day weekend, so I guess officially summer is over, and we are looking forward to the fall and winter season. But kind of bittersweet, because I do feel like summer came and went, and we didn't really have a chance to really enjoy the summer season, not like how we would have normally have done so if this was a non-pandemic situation. So I feel like I didn't really have a lot of chances to go to the beach or be outside more often. So it's a little unfortunate, but it is what it is. And we're doing the best that we can. But I hope you had a chance to enjoy it. I hope you had whatever nice barbecues or relaxing time with your friends and family in a safe manner, wherever you are and wherever you are watching. As for myself, kind of low-key, but I'll get into some stuff that I kind of experienced. But like every week, this is the podcast where I talk about everything in pop culture news, movies, games, TV, what have you, and kind of give my thoughts and opinions on it. As always, if you're new to watching the show, do hit that like and subscribe. It's really appreciative and helpful for the channel to grow, so that I could reach more people like yourself and build this community. And for those of you who are watching, as always, thank you again for tuning in. So I wanted to start something off a little on a good note, because I saw this video this morning and it really brought a huge smile to my face. So we all know Ryan Reynolds does a lot of things with his time, and he's involved in a lot of different projects and businesses and all that. And one of those is Mint Mobile. And if you've been following him for a while, you know that his Mint Mobile commercials are pretty hilarious and they're pretty funny. But I think nothing tops with what he released this morning. And I'm just gonna go ahead and play it, and I'm gonna watch it along with you guys, because it is the best thing I've seen on the internet this week.
It's hard to believe that Mint Mobile has gone so long without an unlimited plan. So to introduce it, we brought in an actor we've all gone too long without. Rick Moranis.
So what do you want me to do? You want me to say something about Mint?
No, that would have been smart. But no, it's $30, it's unlimited. It'll do just fine.
Sounds good. I really got to get a phone. So why am I here?
Just
His timing is still...
a huge fan.
Oh, stop it. Come on,
No,
stop it.
seriously. Massive.
That's it?
That's it.
See ya.
Hi, Rick Moranis.
Now that is the sweetest thing I've ever seen, and again,
hard to believe
it
that
kind
Mint
of just lets you know how much we've missed Rick Moranis. Rick Moranis being a Canadian, Ryan Reynolds being a Canadian, a fellow Canadian. So I'm sure he's just happy to have a Canadian icon in a commercial spot with him, and doesn't even have to do anything. Just wanted to be there with him, because he's a huge fan and all that. And you could see Rick Moranis. Now, you have to keep in mind, he hasn't done any TV, movies, or anything in a very, very long time. And he's actually taken a huge break away from Hollywood. I remember it all started because his wife was severely ill. So what he did is that he said family was more important than everything in Hollywood. So he took some time off to take care of his wife and his kids. And unfortunately his wife passed away, and he was just done with Hollywood. I know he did some music on the side and all that, but he's been slowly creeping back up again. There are rumors that he may be popping up in one of the Ghostbusters reboots, but that never came into fruition. He was announced as being cast in the new sequel to Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, with Josh Gad playing an older version of the little boy from the original movie. So that's something. And then he popped up on Disney Plus's Pop Culture, or Prop Culture, I should say, which is a documentary series about props from a lot of the Disney productions and all that. And they had a special episode on Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, where Rick Moranis actually gave his first on-screen interview in a very, very long time. So it was just so nice to see Rick Moranis pop up in this kind of TV or Twitter spot, because I think this debuted on Ryan Reynolds' Twitter page or Twitter feed, promoting his Mint Mobile company. So awesome to see Rick Moranis, and that brought just a huge smile on my face, and he is very, very well missed in Hollywood. So hopefully this could be the start of a slow baby step resurgence of Rick Moranis coming back into the general public's eye. So yeah, I really wanted to start off with that because I thought that was really brilliantly done. But like I do with every show, it is a Wednesday, so it's a little couple of days late. But we did have the holiday on Monday, so I feel like that kind of threw my schedule off a little bit. So I do apologize about that. But I start off every show with kind of going over box office numbers and weekend charts. And this weekend was huge for box office because it was the first time a major blockbuster, the movie that we've been hearing about all summer, prior to summer, COVID, and it is Tenet. And Tenet finally made its U.S. domestic release on Friday, right before the holiday. So let's just take a quick look at the numbers here, because obviously a lot of people were wondering how well Tenet's going to do. I was able to watch Tenet, actually, and I'll get into that after we go over the numbers here. But let's look into the numbers. And Tenet, to no surprise, came in at number one. It pulled in domestically $20.2 million. If you tabulate the worldwide box office numbers for the overseas numbers, it came up to 152.2 million worldwide, and domestically it was showing in 2,810 theaters. So obviously I have a strong feeling that this is not the launch that they were expecting. This is not the major numbers that they were hoping for. But then again, you have to keep in mind too, California and New York are the two major cities in the U.S. that still have that box office, that cinemas are still not open. And that takes up a huge amount of the tally there, I'm sure. Plus, I really do feel like there's a good amount of people in the U.S. who are still not comfortable going back to the movie theaters. So should they be happy they at least pulled in 20.2 million? They should have. But I think they were pretty much expecting more. So coming in at number two is the New Mutants that debuted the week prior, and that pulled in $3.03 million, playing at 2,754 theaters. Do also keep in mind too, this also does include drive-ins, but Tenet is not playing in drive-ins in states where theaters are not open. So again, another fine line with the whole Tenet release and the controlled release they're having there. But New Mutants is showing in drive-ins across the US. So they dropped dramatically since the week prior. So New Mutants not really doing that great in the box office right now. At number three, Unhinged pulled in at 1.8 million, playing at 2,402 theaters. This is starring Russell Crowe. And has been on the top five for like the last 3 weeks now. Bill and Ted Face the Music pulled in $773,108, only showing at 953 theaters. Do keep in mind too that when this came out, it also came out on premium video on demand. That's why the numbers are a little skewed, because I think the majority of the people decided to watch it at home instead. And then rounding out the top 5, you have a new SpongeBob movie, which I totally was not aware of, but the SpongeBob movie Sponge on the Run came in at $355,401, only showing at 304 theaters. So a little something for the family, for the kids there. But again, numbers dictate that, or at least they show that people were just not comfortable going back into the theaters just yet. So, a lot of to do about Tenet. I feel like if you have been watching and listening to the podcast, I've been talking about Tenet a lot, and every week there's always something new about Warner Brothers and how they want to handle the release, how Christopher Nolan is very adamant about wanting to only release in theaters and so on and so forth. And then this is the first weekend result domestically, and I think if I were Warner Brothers and Nolan, I'd be hugely disappointed. But what were you to expect? I mean, a lot of people were just not ready to go back to the movie theaters just yet. And you still have, like I said, LA, New York, theaters are still fully closed. So that does make up a majority of the box office numbers when you tally everything from the US. So like I said, I was able to see Tenet over the weekend. Me and two buds of mine, we actually rented a screen in Connecticut. We found Cinemark theaters in Connecticut had this special where you could do a private watch party, and that basically is, kind of like how you celebrate your birthday at a movie theater. Think of this like that, where you rent a screen all to yourself for a private viewing. And it was just us three, and we went and we were able to catch Tenet. I will have a full-on review on the channel, especially a little glimpse of my experience going back to the movie theaters after like a 6-month hiatus. And it did feel good. At the same time, I was a little nervous, but everything was really clean. The staff was really well trained and handled everything very nicely. But as for the movie, I walked in there with very low expectations because I was a little bit just annoyed with all the news and all the hubbub about Tenet this and Tenet that, and how controlling they are with their release. So I wasn't sure what to expect, to be honest with you. But just to keep it brief, the movie is actually very well done, and it's actually a really ambitious and kind of mind-blowing movie. The way that they play with the whole time reversal and how that comes into play with each individual involved, and kind of the effects they were using. You had scenes where you had one group of people going in real time, and then behind them you had another group going in reverse time on the screen at the same time. And it was just it was quite a feat, to be honest with you, that Christopher Nolan was able to pull something like this off. And I can fully understand why he was so adamant about this being a movie theater experience, because it's true. This is the type of movie that you really need to see in the movie theater. And was it well worth kind of like the risk in going back to a theater? Let's just say we were lucky. The theater that we went to was really empty. The only ones there were pretty much the staff, and it was like a staff of 3 or 4. And then it was us 3, and I think during the whole time I was there, I saw maybe 3 or 4 other people throughout the whole thing. So I think we lucked out. We didn't watch it in a general sitting where other people were watching. We had a private screening altogether, which honestly, it wasn't really that expensive if you split it up amongst 3 people, and I'm sure if we invited 2 more, it'd be even more palatable. But it is a very well done movie, and I was really happy I got to see it because it's actually a really good movie. I don't know where I could rank this in the Nolan movie list. This was a conversation me and my friends had on the drive back home. because I do feel like I have to watch this movie again. The one thing that this movie suffers from is your typical Nolan flaws, and that is the soundtrack is just blaring. And unfortunately, it does drown out a lot of the dialogue. So when you have a lot of actors who have English accents or who are portraying like Russians or German or whatever have you, with those heavy accents and the blaring soundtrack, it does have a tendency to get very difficult to understand the dialogue itself. So I really found myself like really trying to pay attention. Walking into this, we kind of knew this was going to be an issue, so we even opted to rent those closed caption devices that they provide in movie theaters, which I never done before. And it was this really cool device that you would put in your cup holder that has like a little screen that projects the captions for you. Now the downside was that this thing never worked. Our things never worked, and I don't know if it's because the programming was off or what have you, but it was just unfortunate that we couldn't get that thing working. So I really had to pay a lot of attention as best as I could. But I would say that I got the general gist of the overall story, and I was able to follow from beginning to end. But I feel like a second viewing is needed for myself, just so I can get all the little tidbits that I really couldn't fully understand that really surrounds itself around the story. Now, John David Washington, he's a really good actor, and his breakout role was when he appeared in BlacKkKlansman and his character in BlacKkKlansman was very like low-key, mellow, kind of chill dude. Unfortunately, he plays all the same type of personality in this movie, and I felt like this movie called for a more action oriented star, someone who can like really project and show emotion and emote, and he doesn't really emote that well, and his tone of how he speaks is very low. So I felt it was not a great fit for me, honestly. Robert Pattinson was really great. He kind of played this like you don't know if you could trust him kind of character and all that stuff like that. But I think the standout star was Elizabeth Debicki, playing the main female lead in the movie, and I thought she was a powerhouse throughout this whole entire movie. Kenneth Branagh was fantastic. So overall, honestly, this was a really great Christopher Nolan film, and I'm really happy I had a chance to see it. Again, was it worth the risk of going back to the theater? If you had a situation like I did, then it wasn't that much of a risk, and it was actually a little bit more comfortable experience. If I were to know that the only way I was going to see this was going into a general sitting type of movie theater, then I probably would not have gone, and I probably would have waited. So I feel like a lot of people were kind of just waiting to see how things go, and then who knows, maybe people will start going back this upcoming weekend and the weekend after and what have you. But the only thing I'll say is that it is worth watching, and if you can have a safe chance to watch it in a big theater setting, then you should do yourself that favor and do so, because it's definitely a movie theater experience movie. But this weekend was really busy. You had that release, and then you had Mulan that came out on Disney Plus. Again, premium video on demand. You had to pay $30 for it. And from some of the articles I read about it, Mulan opened up also overseas in movie theaters, and it unfortunately didn't really do that great. I think it did like 5.9 million over the weekend, and we don't have the numbers yet for the PVOD releases and how many people bought it, but from what I've read, it was also lower than expected. And I think this has a lot of factors involved in here where you have people who just don't want to shell out $30 for this movie. It's a lot of money, and it's $10 more than what you would have normally spent on another movie theater at home experience. Like when The Invisible Man, Trolls World Tour, even Bill and Ted, when those were available to rent online, they were like $20, and Bill and Ted was an exception because it was $25, but you owned it after that. So $30 plus you had to have it on a platform that you were already paying monthly for kind of turned a lot of people off. Now they did allow it to be able to have it rented out on Roku, Google, and Apple. But even then, I think a lot of people opted not to. Plus, I think word of mouth came out that the movie just wasn't that great, and that's kind of unfortunate to hear too. But from what I'm hearing, it lacks the heart, it lacks the charm, and it was way too serious for its own good. And then internationally, unfortunately, you have this big not conspiracy, but this issue where a lot of people in China are boycotting the movie because of its affiliation with certain things out there that are not really highly regarded at the moment, and some comments that the lead actress made in support of these areas and territories. So I think when you have all that combined, unfortunately, Mulan kind of fell into this really unfortunate trap where it doesn't look like it's going to be able to do what Disney was hoping it was going to do, because Disney had a lot of high expectations for this movie when it was slated to come out this summer in theaters prior to the pandemic, and a lot of people were really anticipating for this movie to come out, but unfortunately it looks like it kind of left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, and I think word of mouth is finally coming out about that. So those are the numbers there. I don't have anything, no updates here when it comes to like Netflix. I do know that number one on Netflix was that new, I believe it's a series or it's a movie called Away. It stars, whatchamacallit? Let me look it up right now. It is a TV series and it stars Hilary Swank, and it's kind of like a space series. Basically, Emma Green embarks on a treacherous mission to Mars in command of an international crew, leaving behind her husband and teenage daughter. So it sounds like it's kind of a drama. Season 1 did launch on Netflix over the weekend, and it looks like a lot of people were interested in watching that. And Cobra Kai was still within the top 2 there. So it's really, really nice to see that Cobra Kai, that people are still watching that series, because it's really well worth it. I already gave my 2 cents about that last week in my previous episode, and kind of my re-review of the series, because I was able to watch it a while ago when it was originally out on YouTube during their premium streaming service. So nice to see that there, and nothing really worth mentioning on the iTunes weekend rentals there. No big surprises or anything of that sort. So since last week, I've been watching a lot of different things, and I'll give one review of something that I watched that I really, really loved, and I'll give you some insights on some series that I started watching last week. But one of the things I really watched last week that I was really excited to see on HBO Max was Class Action Park. So Class Action Park is a documentary film about the ins and outs of this water park in New Jersey called Action Park. And the main reason why I really wanted to watch this was because I went to Action Park a lot. This was a staple of my childhood in summer. I would go there with some of my relatives from Maryland. We would somehow meet in the middle and go to Action Park in New Jersey, because it was the only real water park here on the East Coast. Yes, we had Six Flags Great Adventure, and then if you went to Virginia, you had King's Dominion and things like that. But these were more like just regular amusement parks. But when you wanted to cool down, especially summers here on the East Coast can be very treacherous, Action Park was the way to go, And I remember, now granted, I was like between the ages of 6 and 9 when I went there, but I do vividly remember how it was very chaotic. A lot of areas of the park were overly crowded, and I never felt like I saw enough workers there. Like I didn't really notice any lifeguards. Anytime I walked by the Tarzan swing, it felt like a madhouse, like a huge frat party or whatever. You had people that were drinking and smoking and just having a fun time. I saw arguments, and I didn't really see like major fights or anything like that, but it was just a very and I saw a lot of people get injured. I actually almost drowned in the wave pool. I remember my uncle actually had to pull me out because I got way too deep and into the deep end, which is nice to know. The in the documentary, they actually called that area the death zone because they expected people to die there, or they've seen people drown there, which is bizarre to me, but basically, yeah, my uncle pulled me out, and I remember choking and like spitting out all the water, but I was fine, right? I was able to make it, and lucky for him, because like I said, no lifeguards, no one saw me struggling the whole time, but my uncle with his keen eyes was able to pull me out. But yeah, the documentary covers basically the start of Action Park and the main owner of Action Park, which was put together by now let me just make sure that I have the right names here, but I had the name here earlier. I apologize. I'm like reading it. Eugene Mulvihill. Yeah, Eugene Mulvihill, who was kind of like a Wall Street guy. He started his career in kind of like the penny stock business, and kind of like the fraudulent selling of weak stocks to potential buyers, and that's how he kind of made his money. And he already sounded like extremely corrupt and all that. And then he decided that he wanted to buy out this ski lodge and turn it in the summers, turn it into a big water park. And it was interesting how the documentary shows you kind of his thoughts and process, and he really didn't really have a planning team. A lot of the ideas he had for these rides and areas in the park were just his own, and I felt like he kind of just told someone, hey, I'll just do it this way, and they went ahead and did it without really having any proper testing or engineers really looking to see if this is possible and that, or maybe the engineers he worked with were batshit loco and all that, and we're just about to do anything. Everyone who worked in the park was a teenager, and they interviewed a lot of former workers of the park, and how it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll, like they really didn't care, and it was just a very Jersey vibe, because people were cursing each other out, calling everyone's pussy and all that stuff like that, especially on the Tarzan swings. They talked about the rapids rides, which I also remember riding and always had an issue with, because those rapids that they had, there were always these bottlenecks where there will be pileups and pileups of people, and it started off as fun, but then it kind of like ruined the moment, because you would just get stuck, and then you'll just get bombarded with all these people. So it's funny how they just talk about the poor engineering there and the poor management altogether. And then the absurdity of this guy, invading this town, and then the town was trying to fight back and give him crap about like opening a place like this, and he needed insurance to open this park up, but he couldn't get insured, or he didn't want to deal with insurance. So what did he do? He actually created his own insurance company. It was a fake insurance company where he had this piece of paper. It was like London and Associates, or whatever the case was, that it was non-existent. And basically that's what allowed him to open up the park and operate for that long of a period of time. So throughout the documentary, they interviewed a lot of former workers, former employees, security, people who were just visitors of the park, and they recollect, on their times there, a lot of the incidents that they saw, the fights, the injuries, the way that the workers would handle certain situations, how those who could not swim, they would put this bracelet on with the initial CFS on it, and basically what that meant was I cannot fucking swim. I do recall seeing people with this bracelet walking around, and I had no idea. But then they talked about how the major highway kind of split the park in half, and the craziness of the drunken people who would go to the go-kart ride and the alpine slide, and how many people got injured on the alpine slide. And it was so funny hearing the absurdity in the stories from these people, because again, I can relate because I've seen instances that are similar to what they were talking about. So I would say the first 2/3 of the movie were very comical, because again, you're watching this, and again, if this is something that is completely new to you, you couldn't believe such a place existed, but it did. It really did. And it lasted for so long. I believe it was open until 95 or 96, until it eventually closed down. And it opened up like in the 80s. I want to say like in like 1980. That's when it first opened up. Or actually, it opened up 1978. So the year I was born, it opened up, and it finally closed on September 2nd, 1996. How insane is it that a park with all those issues, and mind you, people died there multiple times, and it was able to stay open for that long. Now, that's the part of the documentary where it takes this weird turn where, like I said, 2/3 is somewhat comical, because again, it's a recollection of all the craziness, all the hijinks, how Eugene really, really managed the park and how he was running things. And then the last third of it was when they start talking about those who died and kind of the grief the family suffered, how, Eugene pretty much didn't care about them. He didn't offer condolences. He really didn't do anything to rectify the situation and all that. So it kind of took like a strange, like unfortunate, morbid twist where now I felt guilty for having so much fun watching that whole documentary. I'm glad that they had a chance to cover all of this, and I felt terrible for a lot of the families involved, for the people who died, because a lot of the people who died were young, like I believe one of them was 16, another one was 18. And like I said, it's not just one instance. Multiple people died. One guy got electrocuted, I believe in the not the rapids ride I was talking about that, but they had this kayak kind of ride, and underneath the water they had these turbines that would like simulate the rapids, and one of them had a malfunction. A guy fell into the water, accidentally touched the turbine, and got electrocuted to death. That was one death. They had multiple people who drowned in the wave pool that I mentioned. You had a kid, and this was the main one that they covered in the story, was you had a kid who flew off of the alpine slide and hit his head on some rocks on the side, and he died in the hospital later because of his injuries. And again, the absurdity of Eugene and the way he handled the situation. He said it wasn't the ride that killed the kid. It was the rocks outside of the ride that killed the kid. So that means the ride was safe. It was just unfortunate that the rocks were there. And those were the kinds of things that he would do to get away from all of these things, get away from the lawsuits. They said anytime he got sued, he would take it to court immediately. He would not settle outside of court. He would force all the people involved to spend all their money for lawyers and all the extra fees to take things to court. But by the time it happened, it never went through because they ran out of money. It was just insane how much of a shady kind of individual this guy was and all that. And it was just mind-blowing. And this is a documentary that I highly recommend watching because it was just insane and phenomenal. And just reliving again a place I used to visit as a kid. And I'm sure I'm missing a lot of stuff out, but you get the gist of it. So if this sounds interesting to you, I highly recommend it. It is on HBO Max. It's not that long, and it is quite entertaining. And again, if you didn't live on the East Coast, you would have never heard of this place. And if I were to tell you stories, about a place that's like such a place that existed, you would probably think I'm bullshitting you, but I'm not. And this movie kind of, this documentary really puts it into light and really, because a lot of the things I knew about, but there were a lot of things behind the scenes I didn't know about, and I think they did a really great job in unveiling a lot of that with their interviews and a lot of the research that they did. And of course, everyone always seen the picture of the crazy loop-the-loop, kind of water slide and all that, which did exist. I saw it. It was never functioning when I was there, but it functioned for a little bit in the beginning when it first opened. But yeah, they talk about that. Eugene designed that himself without any real proper approval or testing or what have you. And, they kind of went with it, so again, a lot of fascinating stuff, great recollections from former staff and former visitors. They even had a small interview from 2016 with the son of Eugene, who kind of at one point took over the park for a little bit, but then eventually got bought. And then Eugene apparently, right a year before he died, repurchased it back, not to make it Action Park again, but there was just something about this whole water park ski lodge that he really, really just wanted. And I think the majority of it was because he was using it also for money laundering, for all of these other things that he was involved in. There were rumors that he was involved with the mafia, this and that, and what have you. And then eventually when he lost, and he started losing money and he kind of went bankrupt or was on the verge of it, that's when he sold the park to other owners and all that stuff like that. So again, a fascinating documentary. Highly recommend it. You won't be sorry if you watch it. It's a thrill ride, just like how it was being there. It is a thrill ride to watch this documentary from beginning to end. So yeah, so that was one of the major things that I caught last week. Some other things that I've been watching. The Boys season 2 came out on Friday. The first 3 episodes were released on Friday, and I watched all 3, and it is amazing. It picks right off where season 1 ended. And if you remember watching season 1, the very beginning of it, you had your like, oh snap moments. This definitely has a couple of those, and I do like what they're doing here, where it looks like you are going to get more involved with each of the individuals again, and how things are going to play out together, because I don't want to spoil anything for you, because I do feel like anything I will say is going to be a spoiler if you haven't seen it. But what I'm going to do is, I believe The Boys season 2 will be 10 episodes long this season. So what I'm going to do is or 8 episodes, but once we get to the halfway mark, I'm going to do like a half season review, and then I'm going to do a full review once the other half releases. So do stay tuned to the channel there. Another documentary that I started watching actually this week, from the weekend, is The Vow. The Vow is a docuseries on HBO Max that goes over this company called Nexium. And Nexium was actually one of these companies where you could sign up, and it's supposed to offer kind of enlightenment and some personal growth and all that. It was headed by this very smart guru. His name was, and I just want to look it up real quick. Nexium is a self-described American multi-level marketing company based near Albany, New York, which offers personal and professional development seminars through executive success programs. And the founder was Keith Raniere, who was like this very brilliant mathematician, but it turned out that it ended up being a cult, and a cult that had a lot of implications of sex trafficking and all that stuff like that. It had a lot of celebrities that were involved in it. A lot of celebrities were actors from Smallville, so if you remember watching the news, you had people like like some of the main actors from Smallville being a part of this cult, with Allison Mack being like center of attention when this whole thing was coming about. So it was really interesting to watch the documentary. I have the first 3 episodes are out now, so I have only watched 3 episodes, and it dives deeper and deeper into the controversy. Like, you really don't get fully into the controversy until the end of episode 2. And I think I'm going to do the same thing here. Was that when I think the series is only going to be 6 episodes. I'll do my full review of it after 6, but it is bananas what was involved here. The first episode, they spent a lot of time just talking about like their practices and their philosophies and all that. And you follow 2 main people. One was Mark and another one is Sarah. They were kind of business partners who started in the beginning. Mark was a director of this very popular documentary I remember watching back in the day, and I believe it was called What the Bleep Is This, which really talks about like physics and kind of like the environment and science and all that stuff like that. And that's how he got attracted to this guy, because of his scientific knowledge and how he wanted to learn from him. And Sarah was like an up-and-coming actress and everything like that. So that was kind of more like the Hollywood tie-in there, and how they were able to recruit a lot of people from Hollywood to join this cult. So it's been fascinating. It started off slow, and I wasn't sure what I was going to get myself into, but the more I watched it, the more I was like, I couldn't believe what the heck I was watching, or I couldn't believe the stories that were being unveiled. The women involved, oh my God. The one thing I will spoil right now is just, it became this crazy sorority, secret sorority that no one knew about, but it was headed up by Allison Mack, apparently, with the knowledge from Keith Raniere. They gave the okay to do so. And they had to give up like a personal thing of theirs as collateral, and majority of that were like naked photos of themselves, and then they ended up branding themselves like cattle, which is just insane. So I'm looking forward to see how the rest of the series unravels there. So do stay tuned to the channel for additional information and details there. I mentioned The Boys, mentioned The Vow. And so one of the big things that came out today, but I was able to actually get a glimpse of when I saw Tenet, was the Dune trailer finally came out today. And that's Denis Villeneuve's his interpretation of the Dune story that was made popular in book form. David Lynch tried his best to adapt this storyline back in the day, to unfortunate failure. I remember watching it as a kid, and I was completely confused, and I had no idea what the heck I was watching. But it starred a very young Luc Picard there. One of the things I remembered. But Dune, this has been on everyone's anticipated list because of, one, the storyline. There's a huge fan base with the Dune storyline. I never read the books. I'm only familiar with the original movie. But people who I know who've read the book said like the story is so in depth and kind of like a Star Wars type of storyline, where it takes place on I believe on Mars and this and that. And it follows like the main guy who's kind of like supposed to be like the savior of this planet or what have you. So that's one thing. Another thing is that the cast is just amazing. Like, it's like all of like Hollywood elite is in this movie. You have obviously, like I mentioned, Denis Villeneuve, who's directing, and if you're not too familiar with him, Denis, he did Blade Runner 2049, which I loved, amongst other movies that he's done. But look at this cast of characters here. You had Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Rebecca Ferguson, Oscar Isaac, Jason Momoa, Dave Bautista, Stellan Skarsgård, Javier Bardem, Josh Brolin, David Dastmalchian, and I could just keep going on and on. It's like name after name after name. It's like a full-on cast, and it is amazing. And we've been getting teased with photos here and there But I think all of us were waiting and wondering, when are we going to get our first trailer? When are we going to get our first trailer? So if you had a chance to watch Tenet like I did, you had like a tease look, and watching the scenes on a big screen, it looked fascinating. It was like, I felt like I was watching Blade Runner 2049 again, because the cinematography, the landscapes that they built, and then seeing these big Hollywood stars in their costumes and makeup, and it just looks fantastic, right? And Timothée Chalamet looks really, really awesome. But today they finally released a full trailer, and my excitement and anticipation just got heightened after watching it, and I think a lot of people feel the same way. I think there's a lot of Dune fans on Twitter who don't know anything about Dune, but now they're fans now, because everyone's just losing their minds over the trailer, and it looks phenomenal. It looks really well done. I think the big reveal that everyone was waiting for was when the big worm came out of the sand, to finally reveal itself, because again, this is a huge part of the storyline, and something that kind of failed when David Lynch did the movie back in the 80s. I believe it was the 80s, and it never really captured my attention, and it disappointed a lot of people out there. So Denny, he loves to put himself in these massive universes and worlds that are far out there, and I'm hoping that he can do this story justice, because at least from what it looks like now, it looks great, and I am really, really looking forward to it. So hey, let me know your thoughts if you had a chance to watch it, and if this is something that you are interested in. And do let me know also anything that maybe you're able to watch that I mentioned. If you're watching The Boys like I am, The Vow, Class Action Park, leave your feedback in the video, or you can always reach out to me through DM, or catch me on Twitch. I always mention that I stream Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and I have a lot of conversations with a lot of people, so I'm always happy to talk about these things with you. So Dune, it's still set to come out this year. We don't know if that's gonna stick. I think the next major Hollywood release in theaters is Wonder Woman 84. And I think Dune was slated to come out later, like I think in November-ish or December. So let's see if they stick to it. Is this a movie that I'm going to be willing to take that risk again? If I have a chance to maybe rent a screen, I have a feeling that me and my friends were probably going to end up doing that for this one for sure, because it just looks like a movie that I have to watch in the theater, and it looks fantastic. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Another big piece of news that came out, the Oscars, the Academy, released a new set of inclusion requirements for film nominations to be considered for Best Picture, for the Best Picture category. And I was extremely surprised when I read about this, because I was of two minds in my thoughts on it, but let me just first kind of go over what the details are here. So beginning with the 96 Oscars, which are to be held in 2024 to reward films that opened up the year prior in 2023, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences announced on Tuesday that films will have to meet minimum requirements regarding representation and inclusion in order to be eligible for the Best Picture Oscar. The new requirements were determined by a task force headed by Academy governors Devon Franklin and Jim Giannopoulos. They are modeled after a template inspired by the British Film Institute, the BFI's diversity standard guidelines, used to determine certain funding eligibility in the UK and eligibility in some categories of the British Academy of Film and Television Awards. That's the BAFTA Awards that happens over there. So starting with the 96 Oscars, a film will have to meet at least 2 of 4 inclusion standards to be eligible for Best Picture. This includes having at least one lead or major supporting character from an underrepresented racial or ethnic group, and at least 30% of all actors in secondary and more minor roles from 2 underrepresented groups. So that's just the gist of it there. And then in the meantime, an Academy Inclusion Standards form will have to be submitted to the Academy for a film to be considered for both the 94th Oscars that are being held in 2022 to recognize films from 2021 and the 95th Oscars 2023 awards show, representing films that came out in 2022. So when I first heard about this, I was, like I said, of two minds. And the reason why was because I didn't want it to get to the point where you were forcing filmmakers to cast based off of these standards in order for them to get considered to be nominated for a Best Picture. And I thought it was actually doing the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish here when it comes to inclusion and when it comes to representation. Because again, I feel like you're kind of forcing things on these film creators, and just forcing things for representation instead of having it happen naturally or happen in a way that the story was meant to be told in a way, right? So I was really, really baffled by that. However, when I read more about it, and basically I went into I went to the official website just so I can read really what the details were here. So let me pull it up right now just so I can read it for you. Interesting that it's not easily available like I once saw. Oh, that's because I'm on the wrong website. I'm on the ABC website, and that's not what I wanted. Here we go. So, let's see. Come on. I really hate when I can't pull up something that's supposed to be so easy. Academy of Motion Pictures. Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences. Okay. And that is... It keeps bringing me to Oscars.org, but... Yeah, I should have saved that article I was reading before, so I do apologize in advance here. News. Maybe this is where I can pull up. Yeah, I should have saved the other article I read, because after reading that other article, it made me understand a little bit more of what they are trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish. Because if you were just to go off of what I just mentioned there, you would probably be as confused as I was. So let's see here. Okay, here we go. So in this other article, and this article I'm pulling through NPR.org. So, and they were calling this kind of movement Academy Aperture 2025, which includes a number of new policies aimed at fostering a more inclusive organization and film community going forward. So, Academy President David Rubin and Academy CEO Dawn Hudson said in a joint statement on Tuesday that they believe the new Best Picture eligibility criteria will help bring about long-lasting essential change in the industry. The aperture must widen to reflect our diverse global population in both the creation of motion pictures and the audiences who connect with them. The new standards require films to fill a certain percentage of on-screen and behind-the-scenes roles with people from underrepresented groups, including women, people of color, people with disabilities, and people from the LGBTQ community. The requirements fall into 4 categories: on-screen representation, creative leadership and project team, industry access and opportunities and audience development. So when I read that part, it clicked and it made a little bit more sense now. And this is why I had an issue originally with this. So hear me out. Let's say I was a filmmaker and I decided that I wanted to make a movie, a period piece, right? Or a war film, right? You look at your 1917s, your Dunkirks and all that. Now, depending on what kind of point of view I'm going to be telling the story from, more likely than not, the entire representation on screen will be predominantly white and male, right? Because again, this was the time of that time, and there were hardly any women serving at the time, especially in like trench battle and all that stuff like that, right? And I'm a male director, right? Now, if I were to get dinged because the entire cast is fully represented by just white male people, actors, however, my story was so strong and had a huge word of mouth, did well at the box office, and all that stuff, and I couldn't get nominated, I didn't qualify for nomination based on those new standards, that's unfair. I think that is highly unfair. One of the biggest movies as of recent was a movie called Little Women. Little Women, if you watch the movie, mainly white representation, right? Of course you had your women in there, but again, white representation. Would they have been dinged under these new rules? However, now that I'm reading the more details behind it, it makes a little bit more sense now. So let's break it down. On screen and behind the scenes roles. So what they're trying to do here is that they're just trying to make sure that these productions have that representation and diversity and diversification for any kind of role in a film's production. Okay. And I think that's been a huge issue that a lot of actors of different race and ethnicities and genders have been mentioning, and that has been a major problem in Hollywood. Anthony Mackie said he went on set of Avengers and he was shocked to see that he was the only black man present on set. Makeup, costume, even stunt, or maybe his only stunt double was African American, but everyone else was not represented didn't have representation from another ethnicity. That's a problem, So it's nice to see that they're just ensuring that we give those opportunities to all different races, all different genders, all different walks of life, people with disabilities. There are so many talented people out there. Let's give them all a chance to work on these type of productions, on screen or behind the scenes. That makes a lot more sense to me. So that, and again, the Academy is only asking for the requirements of 2 of the 4 categories here. So on-screen representation, creative leadership, and project team, right? And industry access and opportunities. So again, allowing people of all walks of life, all ethnicities, race, what have you, being able to work in this type of film production. The last part, audience development. I was trying to understand, what does that mean? Does the movie have to have a certain messaging? Maybe. But after reading some opinions from other pundits and other people within the movie circle and all that, they're saying this is their way of finally rewarding movies that are critically acclaimed as dictated by audiences in the movie theaters. So for example, when Black Panther came out, that was like the movie of the year for a lot of people. but it's a comic book movie. It's a superhero movie, and history dictates that these type of movies do not get proper representation in the Academy for Oscars, right? Now this gives a chance for movies like that to get more attention, and because it's kind of like, you know, like the popular vote, right? If one movie knocks it out of the park for an entire year, you know, whether it's word of mouth, acclaim, revenue, you know, box office numbers, why can't a movie like that be considered as best picture of the year? Does it always have to be centered around story? Well, yeah, why not? You know, but these movies should have equal representation, because again, this is what people were watching, this is what they loved, you know, and it generated that buzz. So this is their way of rewarding these type of movies, and I think I have no problem with that. You know, obviously the main focus here is the representation, you know, allowing more opportunities for more people of color, of gender, of sexual orientation to work more in prominent roles on screen and behind the scenes. And hopefully this could be a good first step, or a couple of steps, to ensure that hopefully in the future we don't have to set these type of standards anymore, and it will just be common knowledge and common practice, where it's no longer have to be these type of rules and standards to abide by. So I thought this was extremely interesting news, and again, I had two minds of it, you know, because when I first read it, I got concerned and I was not very happy about it. But then the more I read into it and the more I started seeing clarity and clarification on it, I got it. And I think there's nothing wrong with what they're trying to do here. I think the wording could have been done a little differently, because again, you have news outlets reporting the one way, and then you have to kind of dig deeper to really fully understand what the heck they're talking about. Because again, it won't work if you're trying to force feed it. You know, if you're trying to alter the way storytellers tell their movies and their visions, just for consideration of, you know, of the Oscars and all that stuff like that. And, you know, honestly, as a filmmaker, you shouldn't even be worried about that stuff. You know, it shouldn't be a concern. But again, like I said, if your movie was like a 1917 or a Dunkirk or Little Women, would this have disqualified you for something that a lot of people loved? You know, a lot of people were talking about. So yeah. So very, very interesting news there. I really wanted to take some time to talk about that. You know, in case you missed it, news storyline here, you know, unfortunately the Batman production had to halt for a bit because Robert Pattinson unfortunately contracted COVID. You know, when this news came out, you know, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson also mentioned that him and his family contracted COVID and they were recovering and all that. As of right now, production, it has still not been continued, has not returned yet. So hopefully Robert is doing well and recovering well there. But again, it's just a reminder that this thing is still out there and it's still affecting a lot of people. Moving on to other news, Peacock decided to order 2 seasons of the new Fresh Prince of Bel Air. So Peacock has handed out a 2-season order for Bel Air, the planned drama series reboot of the classic Will Smith-led 1990 sitcom, The Fresh Prince of Bel Air. Will Smith himself made the announcement Tuesday on YouTube. The series to be based on Morgan Cooper's viral video that reimagined the half-hour NBC comedy series as a 1-hour serialized contemporary dramatic reimagining that retains the premise of Will's complicated journey from the streets of West Philly to the gated mansions of Bel Air. Cooper's trailer apparently racked up over 5 million views on YouTube alone since it debuted last year. Cooper is attached to co-write and direct the project and will also serve as a co-executive producer. So I thought that was very interesting news. And I mentioned before that, you know, a lot of people were excited when Peacock came out because this was a chance to not Peacock, I'm sorry, when HBO Max came out, because this was the only streaming service where you could see all the seasons of Fresh Prince of Bel Air. And HBO Max is also producing kind of a reunion of The Fresh Prince of Bel Air. So it is interesting that this is landing on Peacock instead of HBO Max. Again, always gets confusing when it comes to like who owns what property or what have you like that. But hey, at least it's coming somewhere. It's coming to Peacock. I don't know how they're going to handle it because, as you know, if you have Peacock, some things are available to you for free and some is premium where you have to subscribe to their service. When this comes out, again, it doesn't seem like there's an exact timeline or release date that they're aiming for, but who knows? Where will Peacock be when this series is ready to roll out? So we will see and time will tell. Next piece of news here that was kind of a shock to a lot of people. Venture Brothers was all of a sudden canceled after 7 seasons. Adult Swim has canceled its animated comedy The Venture Brothers after 7 seasons and 17 years. I have a lot of friends who are huge fans of Venture Brothers. I've watched it all, off and on. It was kind of like that kind of tribute throwback to Johnny Quest and that type of storyline, but in a more adult, sarcastic, humorous manner. And again, a huge fan base, and I thought this storyline was actually the characters, the cast of characters, the storylines were hilarious. A lot of funny characters came out of this series that people like to quote and all that stuff like that. So this was very shocking when I heard about this. So creator Christopher McCulloch announced the news on Monday on Twitter, saying he and the writers had been in the middle of writing the 8th season when they received the news a few months ago that the show would not be returning. The final 7th season that aired in 2018 is it. And from what I've heard, it ended on a major cliffhanger. So, in the tweet, McCulloch said, "Unfortunately, it's true. Venture Brothers has been canceled. We got the highly disappointing news a few months ago while we were writing what would have been season 8. We thank you, our amazing fans, for 17 years of your kind and patient attention. And as always, we love you." Venture Brothers, from what I also heard too, suffered from delayed season releases. I mean, the series has been around for 17 years and you've only managed to put out 7 seasons. So yeah, there's a lot of problems when it came to that. And, maybe Adult Swim just didn't have the budget for it anymore right now, or maybe they felt it was time to move on because it's been around for so long, and maybe the delays didn't really help it either. So, but according to this article here on Dark Horizons, things may not be over just yet, though. An Adult Swim rep tells Variety it was looking for a way to continue the story with McCulloch and co-writer Doc Hammer. Quote, "We also want more Venture Brothers and have been working with Jackson, Public, and Doc Hammer to find another way to continue the Venture Brothers story. One possible avenue would be the series moving to HBO Max, with that possibility being discussed. However, that's all it is, early discussions and a long way from reality." So yeah, I think that's, again, we've seen that happening with Netflix, where they rescue these series that have been canceled and give it new life on their streaming platform. I'm sure it costs a lot less to do so, instead of doing it for like a major cable station or network television. So hopefully this is something that could be rescued and reproduced on HBO Max. So only time will tell. But yeah, unfortunate news there, especially for you Venture Brothers fans. Next bit of news here, and I know I'm going over than I normally do, but I do bear with me. But there's a lot of great news, and again, shocking news that came out today. AMC finally decided that they're going to be ending The Walking Dead after season 11. So the final season 11, will have 24 episodes, with the first 12 airing in 2021 and the final 12 airing in 2022. And they have also confirmed that they will have 2 new spin-offs, one centering around Daryl and Carol to premiere in 2023, and another anthology-type series to debut, TBD. So, a lot of people know that I was a huge Walking Dead fan, especially when it first came out, and I was obsessed, and I was very loyal to this series. And it got to the point where I felt like an abused wife. You know, constantly getting disappointed with the series, constantly having to go through this dragged out, long, just nonsensical storyline and repetitive storyline at certain times too. You know, it's like torture. But I was just so loyal and so dedicated. I invested so much time in this series that I just couldn't stop watching, and I felt like I was putting myself through, like, you know, waterboarding and all that every season. You know, certain seasons were better than others, and then it will get into this downward spiral and then somehow pick itself back up only to drop down again. So it was a huge roller coaster ride. Eventually, come around season 7 or 8, I gave up. I said I can't do this anymore, and I quit cold turkey. And I never been back. Now, I've heard in recent seasons, like, it's been getting better, like they were bringing things back, you know. But you know, it was just one of those series that I think it's amazing it actually lasted this long, you know, because it already veered so far away from the comic book series. And you know that the creators were just making things up and telling new storylines and you know, new character arcs and all that kind of stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see how they close things out, but I do think it is time to end this series. And it's nice that they're still going to be carrying it on with 2 important characters from the series, so Daryl and Carol. So I guess this means they're not dying anytime soon, right? What's going to happen with Rick? Is he going to finally come back? I know there was supposed to be a Walking Dead movie too in the works where Rick was supposed to be front and center there. So, but yeah, I guess AMC, you know, they finally threw in the towel, and they agreed with, I guess, the majority of the populace out there that it's just time to move on. So yeah, so AMC, you know, finally ending Walking Dead after season 11. So I thought that was really, really crazy news and surprising news, because I don't think anyone really expected it to come down that way. And then another bit of news in the TV realm, Crunchyroll and Netflix made a surprise announcement that they are working on a TV series set in the Shenmue universe. So Crunchyroll and Adult Swim Productions are set to co-produce Shenmue. Or is it Shenmue? I always, you know, again, my Japanese inclination likes to kick in whenever I see this name. But Shenmue, or Mue, it's going to be a 13-episode original anime series based on the Sega game franchise. The story follows the journey of Ryo Hazuki, who witnessed his father's murder at a family dojo. Ryo dedicates his life to finding the man responsible, a mission that takes him from the streets of Yokosuka, Japan, to sprawling metropolis of Hong Kong and beyond. The series will stream worldwide outside of Japan and mainland China on Crunchyroll and air on Adult Swim's Toonami in the domestic U.S. So I think this is gonna be actually pretty interesting, because the thing about Shenmue is that, you know, the storyline itself was very intriguing, and I remember playing this when it first came out on the Dreamcast, that I was really enthralled with the game and enthralled in the story arc and the storyline. The characters were really interesting, and it was a really well-depth, heavy storyline, and it was definitely one of those games I played from beginning to end, and I was very, very invested in it. Then I kind of dropped off when part 2 came out, and then I know there's been a part 3 in the works and all that stuff like that. But I think this would be great to kind of introduce the storyline to a younger generation or a newer generation, and for folks like us to kind of just relive things in anime form. So this will be interesting to see how it comes out. I'm curious how the animation style is going to look like, and you know, kind of like how closely they are going to stick to their original story arc. So from what I'm reading here, let's see, the animation production will be Telecom Animation Film, yeah, and the game creator Yu Suzuki will executive produce, so at least he's going to be somewhat involved in it. So yeah, so I thought that was very interesting news there. I know some of my friends brought this up when I was streaming live on Friday on this piece of news, so interesting stuff there. So moving on to the world of video games, Microsoft basically handed it to Sony today and said basically, it's your move, Sony. So they surprised us with being the first one in the next gen race to finally have a confirmed release date and price point for their next gen consoles. So Xbox came out swinging, pretty much begging Sony to make their move. Come on, your turn. So the final price points and release dates of their upcoming next-gen console has been officially announced as follows. The Xbox Series X will retail for $499, while the less powerful Xbox Series S, this is the one that won't have the disk drive in it, and same processor but lower resolutions and all that stuff like that, will retail for $299. Very cheap price point there for next gen. Both consoles will launch on November 10th. Pre-orders for both will start on September 22nd. Now, separately, outside of that announcement, it was also announced that the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate got a whole lot sweeter, and they are teaming up with EA Play to now feature EA games on demand starting this holiday season for no extra charge. That is phenomenal, folks. I'm telling you. Whatever your thoughts are about EA games and all that, still they are a company that produces very popular titles. You have your NHL game series. You have Madden, right? Madden alone is a huge line of business for them. Then you have the Star Wars franchise. We have Squadrons coming out this year. You had Fallen Order that came out most recently. Are they going to be working on another Battlefront? Who knows? But anything Star Wars related, EA has their hand in it. So, this amongst all the other stuff that they do, you're now going to be able to play through the Game Pass at no extra charge. So I think this is exciting news. Plus, now you have a firm release date for their next gen console. With their price points. And I think for the Series X, with the amount of power that it has, $500, even though I do feel is extremely expensive, personally I would have loved to have seen it be $400. I guess that's going to be acceptable for now. However, I still don't think it warrants me wanting to buy one just yet, because there's just nothing out for it. At least nothing within this holiday season that I'm going to want for it right now. Unlike the PlayStation 5, which will have Miles Morales, which is a game that I am really eagerly anticipating. So yeah, but again, Microsoft finally beat Sony at something, in recent news, especially when it comes to the next gen race. So it's out there. So Sony has yet to rebut and kind of confirm what their consoles will be priced at and when the release dates are. There are rumors out there, but I thought this was fascinating news. But more fascinating was about the Ultimate Game Pass, which I just signed up for a $1 trial right now, and I'm telling you, it looks like a great value. When you have access to all those games, it would be nice to kind of see more steady releases for newer games available on the system, but I think for the value, and now when you can add in the EA library in there, very, very great stuff. So I am really, really looking forward to that. So that's really, really interesting news. Nintendo also had some big news last week. They did their Super Mario 35th anniversary direct feed, where they detailed a whole bunch of releases planned to celebrate the anniversary. So let's run down a couple of things that they announced real quick here. First, what they announced was they are releasing as a bundle the Super Mario 3D All-Stars collection. This will contain Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy in one bundle set. It's going to be available digitally and in physical form, but they said that it will only be available starting September 18th, which is next week, but will be removed from sale at the end of March in 2021. Now, I mentioned this on my stream last week. I find this very interesting given the fact that March is the end of their fiscal year. So I wonder if they're doing this just to really, garnish all of their sales and like really concentrate focus on just a huge rush of sales in hopes that a lot of people are like hankering for this collection. So very, very interesting stuff there. But one thing to note, these are not remastered versions. However, they have been tweaked so that they can be enjoyed in full HD. So very, very fun stuff. I will be picking this up because I realized outside of Mario 64, I have not fully completed any of the other two. It's one of those things where I started playing for a bit and then I kind of veered off because I got distracted by other things. But it will be nice to kind of enjoy and relive these games all over again. And then also last week it was announced that the Super Mario's All-Star Pack that was released on the SNES, Super Nintendo, is now available via the Nintendo Switch Online. So if you're an online subscriber, you have now this collection available for you in the virtual console of the Super Nintendo Virtual Console on the Switch online service. So that's already out. Next, they also announced that a deluxe version of the Wii U platformer Super Mario 3D World is coming out. This is another announcement which came out during last week. The official title is Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. The game is a little further away from release. It will arrive on Switch on February 12th, 2021. But if you are familiar with the same platformer that came out on the Wii U, looks like a little bit more of that, with like online capabilities and more fun times there. One of the biggest surprises that was announced was this Super Mario Brothers 35, which is kind of like their competitive multiplayer version of Super Mario Brothers. Very similar to like the Tetris 99. Like when you clear lines, it affects all the other people's grids. So for example, if you get a Tetris, it's going to affect like a bunch of other people and add additional lines in there. So this is kind of very similar to that, where the more you advance, the more you can mess up other people who are playing with you at the same time. It looks like you can play up to 35 other players within this game. And basically it's whoever's last man standing at the end of it. So this is going to be arriving on October 1st and will only be playable until, again, March 31st, 2021. I don't understand that. The fact that they're not making it available to play moving forward. Now, unlike the 3D All-Stars pack, you can still buy it and own it, and you can play it anytime. But the fact that this is not going to be able to, you won't be able to play this past March 31st of next year, kind of weird. So I really, really don't understand that. But the next two are the biggest surprises that came out that I'm personally really excited about. And one of them is Mario Kart Live Home Circuit. So what this is this is a very brilliantly done version of Mario Kart, where they basically take an RC car, they put a camera on it, and now you can race your own track in your own home or elsewhere outside in public, thanks to augmented reality. So it lets you like drive these Mario Kart toys around your living room via virtual tracks. Where you could like veer and duck around your furniture and all that stuff like that. You have a Mario car, and then you can get a Luigi car, and you can, race against each other. And this will be made available on October 16th of this year. And yeah, it will be utilizing your Switch. So like I said, the camera will help dictate where you're driving and what the track will look like, and you are using your Switch as the controller and the view from the camera. So really, really fascinating technology here. It looks a lot of fun. Now, a lot of the things that were shown in the trailer obviously looks doctored, so I'm curious to see how it's going to look like in real life, IRL. And since we don't have that much longer to wait for it, I will be really interested to see like how this is really going to play out. Unfortunately, in my current situation, I don't have the room for a game like this, but it will be interesting to see if I can still try it out, maybe like in a parking lot or in a friend's house, if I am allowed to go to other people's homes when this comes out. But the last piece here is what I call the piece de resistance, the one thing that has my heart that I am extremely looking forward to, and I think this is the winner of the announcements for me. And they're coming out with a brand new Game & Watch. And again, going back to my history of gaming as a kid, my dad used to buy me these Game & Watches when I was small. And I had a whole bunch of them. You know, I had a Popeye one, I had a Donkey Kong Jr. one, I had a regular Donkey Kong one. I had, Oil Slick was another one. You know, the one where you were rescuing people jumping out of a burning building, you know, with parachutes and all that stuff like that. I had so many of these things, and these were games, portable games before the Game Boy. You know, before we were able to enjoy things on the go. And unfortunately, because I'm an idiot, I used to bring these to school and I would lose them. Either I would leave them in my desk and then forget it's there, and then by the time I left, and then when I tried to come back, when I remembered it, it was already gone, or I had it taken away by a teacher who saw me playing it, and I was never able to get it back again. Now, in the secondary market, in the collector's market now, those things are going for tons of money, especially brand new and unused. But they were very hard to maintain too, because these are LCD screens, like calculator screens, so if you dropped it or something happened, like a lot of pressure was on it, the LCD screen will leak and break, and there goes your game, right? So it was very hard to maintain too if you were not careful. But now it looks like we're getting a new reimagined version of it, called Game & Watch Super Mario Brothers handheld, which is coming out on November 13th. And basically it will now have a full color screen, and you can play the original Super Mario Brothers game right on it, and it also acts as an alarm clock. And I believe that, from what I remember on the trailer, they will also have mini games that represent a lot of those original LCD games, like the juggler and things like that. So I think this is brilliant. And I believe it's only going to be retailing for like $50, around that range. So I'm definitely going to be getting two of these, one to keep and one to open up and enjoy. But again, because of the nostalgia and because of my, me growing up as a kid and how much I love these things, I am so happy and excited about this. And for me personally, this is the one that I'm waiting for the most as part of this whole announcement. So yeah, there you have it. And lastly, in Nintendo news, and I don't think I do have a graphic. So it looks like we are getting a Zelda Breath of the Wild prequel, but not the prequel that you would be expecting. So they released this video, and it was announced in this video that Koei Tecmo, the guys who do Dynasty Warriors and all that, and who developed the 2014 Hyrule Warriors, is coming out with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, which is supposed to be the prequel to Breath of the Wild, which takes place, I believe, like 100 years prior to the events that happens in Breath of the Wild. And the game is coming out November 20th, and this is supposed to be separate from the proper Breath of the Wild sequel, which is apparently still in the works, that Nintendo is still working on. But if you're a huge fan of those hack and slash games, the Dynasty Warrior games, I know a good amount of people did enjoy Hyrule Warriors when that came out back on the Wii U, I believe it was. Do correct me if I'm wrong there. But yeah, when I looked at the trailer looked fun and exciting. And again, if you're into that hack and slash mode, and just to be able to play these Zelda characters in this mode once again, especially in the Breath of the Wild universe, it looks really, really exciting. And I get, Nintendo, like I mentioned it many times recently, Nintendo just keeps surprising us with these like out of nowhere announcements, and telling us that, oh, by the way, it's coming out next week, or by the way, it's coming out in 2 months. Like, we have no idea with a lot of these announcements. So they have been the ones that have been surprising us a lot within the game industry. So very, very interesting stuff there. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to cover here. Again, I've went over a little more than I originally thought, but a lot of stuff to talk about, especially coming back from the holiday weekend. And I hope you enjoyed your time in watching or listening. But that is the show for you guys. Again, I want to thank you for all of your tremendous support. For those of you who are regulars, for anyone new, again, I appreciate you guys stopping by. If you do like what you see, hit that like and subscribe button. It is greatly appreciated, and again, helps with the channel growing and the community building. If you like watching guys play games live online, I do stream on Twitch Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So do check me out there at the Low-Key Geek. I'm currently playing through Marvel's Avengers. That's usually my Wednesday stream. On Monday, it's kind of like a mix and match, but I do a lot of Mario gaming because it's Mario Monday, and kind of a manic Monday stream where I just started recently playing Fall Guys, and I'm having a lot of fun. And I have a 50% rate of getting to the final round and getting so close. Last time I was very, very close. So do catch me there. And then Fridays are my Flashback Friday streams where I enjoy some retro gaming. So if any of that interests you, come on over and let's have some fun. But until next time, stay cool, stay classy, stay safe, be kind to one another, make sure to wash your hands, wear that mask, guys. COVID is still out there. We're not in the clear yet. And I hope you have a great rest of the week, and I'll see you all next time. All right? Thanks, guys. Peace.